Hello everyone. This is a discussion of the source evaluation or critical review assignment. We'll talk about the assignment guidelines a little bit and then we'll look at an example and compare it to the rubric. So a critical review or the source evaluation for you takes a source from your annotated bibliography and summarizes, analyzes, and contextualizes that source within the context of a field of study. So it might discuss in depth using quote summaries and paraphrases what makes your source credible, what makes it valuable, what makes it insightful or not. It might talk about who the intended audience is, what the intended purpose is, who should read it. So I want you to think when you're reading examples about how those examples are meeting the criteria here on this rubric. And I thought that we could look at an example together, and that might be helpful for you. So this particular example is a review of a book called Songwriting in Contemporary West Virginia by Travis Stimeling. And the reviewer is listed here at the end, Richard Allen. And this is a critical review or a book review from the Journal of Appalachian Studies, which is a peer-reviewed academic journal. So this isn't from a popular source, it's from an academic or scholarly source. But I'd like us to take a look at what Allen does, how even in this short review, he is exemplifying some of the qualities, most of the qualities actually of the rubric that we have for critical reviews. So you can see that he begins with a pretty clear introduction. He draws us in with a sentence about the general topic of the book. He gives us a second sentence that addresses the author's credibility. And then he gives us a thesis that begins to evaluate this source. So he says that Stimeling allows the stories of these Appalachian artists to be broadcast almost solely through their own words to the masses in his interesting, if somewhat disjointed, book. So we're already seeing that this isn't the kind of review that says the book is great or the book is not great, but it's talking about both the positive and the negative qualities of the book. And he goes on to elaborate. He says that disjointed isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's the inevitable outcome of how much content is in this book. So he's giving us, as readers, a really good sense of what the book is, its oral histories, about how long it is, and what's in it, notes and interview information logs. He goes on to elaborate, again, 29 interviews sorted between 6 subdivisions. He tells us how the book is organized. In the next paragraph, he really goes into detail on the author's credibility, right? So thinking about ethos again. And he's using some vivid language here. He's saying that he's a talented musician, he's a fan, he's genuinely interested in musicians' lives. So then he's playing on our emotions, but he's also talking about the author's emotional investment, right? So there we're seeing some pathos as well. This author, Allen, goes on to talk more about the book. He's talking again about the author's credibility. And now he's really giving us his assessment. He says that it's a quick and easy read. He tells us that Stimeling uses the artist's own words and what readers get out of this book. So there's really a sense of purpose and audience here. And then as he begins to wrap up his introduction, his evaluation, he continues to talk about maybe some of the problems. So he says that there isn't a running theme, but the reader's able to make a theme out of their own reading in the book. He goes on to say that he would have preferred a different organization as a reader, but that the author, Stimeling, did what he set out to do. So again, we're thinking about purpose and audience and whether the author has achieved his purpose and reached his audience. And then the review concludes by talking about what the book does successfully and what the reader gets out of it, which it ends with a more or less a recommendation of the book for a reader who hasn't read it yet. So if we compare this quickly to our rubric, what we see is that Allen's evaluation of Stimeling's book does rely meaningfully on critical reading, on analyzing the source, and thinking about how it fits into the field of music studies. It's got a clear thesis that is maintained throughout the entire essay. He does analyze ethos and uses pathos to develop his arguments with vivid language and details. And there's evidence-based claims, a logic to this review where the author's talking about relevant history, background information, giving us details that help reinforce his argument. The essay is structured with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. We can follow his arguments pretty clearly. He uses meaningful criteria for assessing the source, so we have a clear sense of what he's going on. Organization, he talks about the structure of the book, he talks about how the ideas are developed and what's actually in the book. The only thing that if Richard Allen were a student in this class, I would like to see more evidence through quoting and paraphrasing. He summarizes really well, but without a lot more text evidence, this doesn't necessarily meet our rubric. So for the purposes of our course, this would still be a pretty excellent source evaluation, but if I were giving this author feedback, I would ask him to rely more heavily on textual evidence, so bringing in more quotes and paraphrases to continue to support his argument. Okay, so I hope this serves to clarify this assignment. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will also post the article in eCampus where you can see it.